It's a multi-billion-dollar industry which continues to boom across Europe. Health and fitness is a huge focus for many as the new year begins. But how do we really get our health on track, both physically and mentally? Hello and welcome to Roundtable. I'm Enda Brady. Now, it's the time of year when health goals are set, gym memberships are signed, and people commit to eating better. In Europe, gym businesses are surpassing pre-pandemic levels, and the nutrition market is set to almost double by 2030. Yet a recent survey found only 46% of Europeans do any exercise at all. So, what are the best ways to get and stay fitter and healthier? Well, let's meet our guests. Joining us from Suffolk in the UK is Matt Brennan. He's director at Grange Fitness and Performance Centre. Here with me in the studio, I'm delighted to welcome the nutritionist Clarissa Lenherr and Vicki Anstey. She's a motivational speaker, athlete and ambassador for the international charity Inspiring Girls. You're all very welcome to this roundtable. Vicki, I'll come to you first. How important is the first step on the road to fitness?
Oh, well, the first step's always the most important, isn't it? And I think it's essential that they are small steps initially, especially after the festive period when everyone is full of good intention. But it's, vital that those steps are sustainable. Any exercise routine that you're going to get into has to be something that you can stick to and something that you enjoy. And I guess my best advice might be to try and find a community of people that you can get into exercise with. I think that always really helps with adherence and a bit of accountability as well. But take small steps and really think about your reasons for doing it.
And keep going.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Matt, I just want to come to you about gym membership and the time of year it is. You always see loads of new people, shiny new trainers, lovely new sports gear they've been given for Christmas. It's very important that they keep coming back, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah, it's as Vicki said, the first day is always the hardest, or the first step is always the hardest, getting through the door. But once you're through the door, then normally a lot of the anxiety and bad thoughts about what a gym might be and what's ahead of them should disappear. Obviously, if they've been welcomed the way they should be welcomed walking into a gym, then we should be flying forward after that.
And Matt, I've often found gyms to be quite intimidating places if you don't know what you're doing. It's very important, isn't it, that there's someone like you there with a positive welcome and the right advice to keep people coming back. Yeah,
it is. Yeah, we always try different aspects of it. So we will send a message before you come so you feel a little bit at home, and then when you walk through the door, then there's always someone there to meet you in reception, or whoever that might be. And then hopefully our coaches are trained to welcome anyone new coming in and introduce them to other people in a gym as well. And that's a big step. If you know someone else or there's a familiar face, again, that's another step that really does help going forward.
Clarissa, a lot of people will be thinking about the weight they've put on over Christmas, New Year, and it's the week to kind of make changes. How important is nutrition?
Yeah, well, being a nutritionist, I definitely argue it's up there as a key priority, especially when it comes to weight management. Exercise is a key part of it. But, we always say, and it sounds a bit cliche, but you can't out-exercise a bad diet. So the best approach, if you're trying to reset and restart yourself on this health journey, and the sweet spot is to combine movement and diet and nutrition related together. So it is a key part, but I think a lot of the time people think that means restriction and removal. And what I try to get a lot of my clients thinking about is, well, actually at that time of year, what can you add in? And it doesn't mean about adding in calories or anything like that to make it feel like it's counterproductive to weight management, but what can you add in that's going to nourish you from a nutrition perspective, rather than going, I'm going to cut calories, I'm going to cut food, I'm going to cut sugar. Start with the things that are going to nourish you first. I think that's a really nice place to begin with.
And Clarissa, small changes can make a big difference over time.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of the time people think that to be healthy, it has to be an all or nothing approach and they have to start in January 2nd and do everything. You know, eat well, move, sleep, and it's unachievable and it's not necessary for most people, you know. Taking these small incremental steps can make the far bigger, more sustainable long-term change and impact than feeling, you know, got to do everything, not doing it, feeling more rubbish about yourself than when you began. So definitely, I always say, do the little steps, just like Vicky was saying, because it's going to be more sustainable.
Vicky, you hold 2 world records, rowing across the Pacific Ocean, cycling coast to coast across the United States.
Yeah.
Fitness pretty much changed your life.
It did, yeah, and you know, I haven't always been the person that I am here today. I started out my professional career in advertising in the corporate world and reached near burnout, was very inactive, and yeah, I completely overhauled my life and threw myself into the world of fitness, ran my own fitness business for 12 years, and then, as you said, I got into adventure and expedition and really pushing my human potential and exploring what my limitations might be. And I know that sounds really extreme and isn't for everyone, and I certainly don't advocate that it should be, but you know, movement, physical exercise can bring so much to your life, and it's not certainly about aesthetic gains necessarily. It's about your underlying physiology and just being better, being healthier, managing your stress better. You know, the modern world that we live in is high pressure and high stress, and it's making us more sedentary, and it's vital that we move more and we are curious about what our bodies can do, and that we explore the world we live in, I think, and get out in nature and yeah, experience everything that life has to offer.
There will be people watching, Vicky, who have had time off over Christmas and New Year to reassess their work-life balance.
Yep.
People who will be thinking, I don't want to do this anymore, whether it's burnout or the hours they're working or the commute. What advice would you give to someone who's watching and just thinks, do you know what, I've reached burnout?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're at that point, it's vital that you take a step back and take stock and reassess some of the stresses in your life and think about whether they can be removed, eliminated, or managed better. But I also think it's important not to take too radical a step initially. You know, just think about how you can better regulate stress in your life, get better perspective, actually. And for me, being outdoors gives me that. Being active gives me that. Any time that I feel like pressure, overwhelm starts to get at me, being outside, getting, you know, renewed perspective on life can change everything. So, yeah, it's not necessarily about overhauling your life and implementing radical change, but just doing small things to remind yourself about what's important in life, I think.
Matt, I see there are approximately 10.7 million people in the UK with a gym membership. How important is it that people keep going? I see an awful lot of people paying gym memberships. They pay the money, but after a few weeks into January, they just kind of lapse back into old habits.
Yeah, it's unfortunately, it's one of those things where people will always do that. They'll buy their memberships and somehow lose motivation with them not getting results or not enjoying what they're doing. So it's so important that if you go to a gym, you find the right thing that suits you, or if you get into exercise, you find the right thing for you, and you want to get results quite quickly, or you want to see progression very quickly, should I say. So once you start seeing that little bit of progression, you'll then have the motivation to keep going and keep moving and eventually get the results that you're looking for. But you just have to stick with it, and those results will eventually come.
Clarissa, the rewards, it's really worth it, isn't it, to get involved and to make changes, little changes. But, you know, in terms of healthy body, healthy mind, this is a necessary step for a lot of people to live a better life.
Yeah, and I think, you know, again, in January, there can be this whole thing of focusing on weight or focusing on a number on the scales. But I think actually what a great way of measuring your progress and your health is actually thinking about other things you can measure. So your mood, how's your mood changed? How's your sleep changed? How's your energy changed? How's your skin, your hair? You know, it doesn't have to be just a number on the scales, which is what I try to get my clients moving away from, because number on the scale shifts and flows all the time, depending on many different variables. But definitely healthy mind, healthy body is a great thing to focus on. And there's so many different ways in which our physical health impacts our mental health. Movement, like Vicky was saying, fantastic. But even going into thinking about our digestive system, 95% of our happy neurotransmitter, serotonin, is created in the gut. 70% of your immune system's located in the gut. Inflammation levels, things like that. So thinking about health as a whole and what are the other parts of your health that you could focus on, I think, is a great way to approach it in January, rather than just, I'm going to focus on health just for weight.
Vicky, talk to me about the benefits of exercise in terms of improving mental health and managing the life and the stresses we have.
Yeah, I mean, it's so easy to see exercise as a means to aesthetic gain, or even just as a hobby. I think we need to get past that, and I think we need to see how exercise and increased movement can help us manage our stress, can help us regulate our well-being, get better sleep, help us to manage toxicity around us, to motivate us to have more interactions, social interactions. There's so many more benefits to exercise than simply, getting in shape. And it has proven positive knock-on effect to not just mental health, but actually every single indicator of well-being. Increased exercise has an increased chance of moving you away from cardiovascular disease, metabolic disease. Death by all causes is improved. You move away from premature death, essentially, by moving more, by exercising more. So there are just so many wide-ranging benefits. I think we do need to stop looking at it as a sort of a necessary evil or as a chore, and particularly at this time of year when I think people are looking for a kind of quick fix.
Matt, I'm just looking at some statistics. The fitness industry in the UK last year in US dollars was valued at 7.6 billion. I mean, this is a big business. You obviously earn your living from your gym company, but it's big business across the whole of the UK and the rest of Europe.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many people, so many fitness professionals, so many people in the industry, out there trying to make a living. So there are facilities for everyone. There should be some kind of exercise or some kind of group training, nutritionist. Everything for every type of person.
And Clarissa, we live in an age where we can get information at our fingertips. I mean, we've never had more access to fitness and nutrition information, even though 46% of people in Europe are not doing any fitness. We've never had it so easy in terms of learning what we should be doing.
Yeah, I think there are pros and cons to that. I think it's fantastic that there's more information out there that is hopefully inspiring positive change. I think on the flip side of that, there's, not a great amount of regulation. So there can be a lot of information that can come out that, might, not be either particularly professionally endorsed, so it might not be coming from professionals. So you might have people without accreditations kind of sharing information that put in the right hands or in front of the right people might not have such a positive impact. So there's definitely pros and cons to the increased amount of information that we're getting. But hopefully when people can choose the right people to listen to, they can get that kind of easier information than having to see somebody privately like you used to have to pre-social media days and when there was access more on the internet, which was prohibitive for a lot of people because it's an expense that not everyone can afford to do.
Vicky, when you started your fitness journey, did you ever, in your wildest dreams, imagine you would end up with 2 world records and see some of the extraordinary things you've seen?
No, absolutely not. And I think that's where, the greatest, dare I say it, success has come from lifestyle changes, and not necessarily just taking on new routines as a means to an end. One of the greatest advantages for movement beyond pure exercise that I often advocate for my clients and audiences that I speak to is what's called NEAT exercise. So it's non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So that's all the stuff that we do that we don't consider to be exercise. You know, it's walking, it's playing with our pets and our children, it's taking the stairs, you know, standing on one leg when you're brushing your teeth. All of those things, the kind of cumulative effect of all of those things, it all counts. And often it counts more, much more than just an hour of exercise a day. So it's really about, you know, lifestyle changes and embracing the incredible benefits of increased movement in all its forms, you know, whether that doesn't have to be rowing across an ocean. It certainly doesn't have to be that. It might be just about, I'm going to find out what this paddle craze is all about and go play that, or I'm going to go for, you know, walks and treks and hikes with friends. Exercise comes in all forms. So
just on that, Clarissa, there's a world of sport to discover, and what maybe for someone, rowing, I couldn't think of anything more boring than rowing myself, but it's, you know, it will be for someone, and there's plenty of other sports.
Yeah, there is. There's a wide spectrum, and you know, like I said previously, it doesn't have to be pounding the treadmill or going, you know, really intense classes, which I think people think it has to burn, it has to really hurt, or it has to make me really sweat to count. But there's slower movement, like, you know, a lot of the Pilates, the yoga, you know, those all have their benefits as well. Just because you don't feel the burn, well, you do if you do them really hardly, but, you know, you don't feel the sweat, but you're getting that core strength and, you know, walking and, like we were saying, neat movements, you know. With a lot of my clients, I get them to habit stack a neat movement onto it. So if they're making a cup of tea, at the same time whilst they're waiting for it to stew, can they do some squats, or can they do some jumps, or can they, when they're brushing their teeth or blow drying their hair, things like that. So there is something for everyone. When people say, I don't like to exercise, I always think, well, let's change that narrative, because exercise comes in many, many different forms. Let's get you thinking about what kind of exercise that you do that you think is an exercise, and how can we take that and make that a routine thing that feels like a good habit for you that's also helping your health.
Matt, just talk to me about building good habits. I mean, I guess from a gym perspective, it's all about just turning up and persevering.
I guess that's the first step. You know, you've got to turn up if that's what you're going to do as your choice of exercise, coming to the gym. But there's so many things. You know, accountability comes into play as well. You know, if you're accountable for yourself, or you've got someone else being accountable, that's a great step. So whether that is a trainer, a friend, a family member, that will help go a long, long way. But as far as sort of building habits, it's, as we sort of mentioned, it's just going out for an extra 15-minute walk every day, taking the dog for a walk, or you know, cutting out a certain snack that you might have that isn't the best for you, you know, every day. So it's just making constant changes or small little changes that will go a long, long way.
And Matt, just going back to something Vicky said earlier on, finding your community, doing it with friends, having someone to lean on, or just a conversation as you do it.
Yeah, for me, that's a big, big thing. You know, fortunately, my type of gym is a community gym. We're not like a regular place. So people come to us for the community and for having other people to exercise with. Yeah, you're not in competition with people, but they're there to push you and help you along your own journey. And everyone's there for their own journey. So I think it's a massive, massive part of getting to where you want to be.
Vicky, we've never had a double world record holder on Roundtable before, so I want to ask you about what you achieved. What was it like rowing the Pacific all those days and weeks alone at sea?
Yeah, 60 days, 17 hours and 6 minutes to be precise. It was pretty hard. You know, physical endurance is one thing, mental endurance is another, emotional endurance is a whole other layer on top of that. You know, and I think it's, for me, it was something I never thought I was capable of doing. And in fact, one of the big reasons that I did it was because I had a lifelong fear of water. So, you know, again, these things aren't necessarily about kind of physical change as such. It can be about things that you need to get over emotionally, and fears that you want to kind of confront, capabilities that you want to unlock. But, you know, and I truly believe that anyone is capable of absolutely anything that they put their mind to. And that's where I think that deep intrinsic motivation is so important. Do something that really matters to you and you will achieve it.
That's a great point, Clarissa, isn't it? There's more in all of us.
Yeah, 100%. And that comes down with nutrition as well. You know, I think a lot of the time people feel that they can't do it. They can't change the habits that are ingrained in them from a nutrition diet point of view, or they're too busy to do it, or, you know, they're cooking for a family and kids and things like that. They can't change it. But once you show people that actually, and this goes back to what we've been saying, you know, just do a few small steps and wow, you've achieved that and you feel great from that. What's to say you can't overhaul X, Y, and Z in your lifestyle and your diet and your movement and everywhere else? So yeah, I think often people need that first burst of the small wins almost to feel like, yes, okay, I can do this, and then we can kind of move forward into the maybe slightly bigger changes if it's needed for a person.
And gut health is such a huge part of everything.
Yeah, pretty much. I'd say it's at the epicenter of our health. You know, like I touched on, 95% of serotonin is created in the gut, but also 50% of our dopamine, our pleasure, feel-good neurotransmitter. Inflammation is at the core of what's happening in our digestive system, immune system function. Even certain subsets of specific kinds of bacteria have been linked to aging and weight loss and all of these kind of things. And I think people think that having good gut health is slightly complex, but it actually isn't that complicated. You know, getting the foundations right in terms of diet, you know, eating plenty of fibre, whole grains, getting your colour on your plate, things like that. Starting there is often enough for most people. It doesn't need to be these quick fixes or these supplements or these expensive tinctures and all this kind of stuff for most people.
And Vicky, fueling your body for you, for everything you've achieved and everything you want to do, the nutrition side of it, almost as important as the actual work you put in?
Yeah, so important. I mean, yeah, and that can be a real challenge sometimes. It's hard at times with certain endeavours when I'm really in the full throes of training. It's hard to get the fuel in. It's hard to kind of get the right amount of protein into your body. So, yeah, that can be tough. And then I think the other side that we often overlook is hydration. You know, hydration's a huge part of optimal performance. And, you know, certainly in the workplace, for example, in terms of our cognitive performance, hydration is so vital. It's not just about not feeling thirsty. You know, 2% of hydration can have a huge impact on our cognitive capabilities. So look at that as well. Drink more water, you know, look at the whole picture.
Your second world record was cycling coast to coast in America.
That's right.
How did you fuel yourself on that journey?
Well, do you want the truth? Yeah, I mean, lots of high-calorie shakes, bit of pizza, lots of jelly babies. I'm not going to tell you that our nutrition was kind of optimal. It certainly was through our training phase, of course, but actually on the race itself, you're just desperately trying to get any kind of calories into your body. And, you know, you're in a huge deficit most of the time. But, you know, I often do these things not just for the kind of physical challenge, but also just out of fascination about what our bodies can withstand and how they can recover. And, you know, when I did the Pacific Row, I lost 25% of my body weight. And I find that a very humbling and quite fascinating process to look at how we can recover from that and how important fueling is for our bodies for basic functions.
So where does your mental strength come from?
Gosh, lots of places. You know, I've been on quite a journey in my life so far and, you know, lots of changes and, you know, I'm keen to kind of stay on that path and keep learning about myself and my capabilities and not be limited in any way. And, you know, obviously as an ambassador for Inspiring Girls, it's important for me to be a positive role model for other young girls growing up, for them to see what they're capable of. And I don't think often, you know, female role models are as visible as they could be. So I'm keen to try to be that as much as possible and just show that, you know, our lives can take all manner of twists and turns, and my career has, you know, gone in so many different directions, and I'm just lucky today, I feel, to be able to apply myself to physical endeavours and then get to talk about them and inspire other people to do the same.
Tell me, Vicky, just briefly, looking at the year ahead, What's next?
What's next? Oh gosh, the $1 million question. Well, I mean, I actually am enjoying a period of relative rest. I love training in the gym. I do a lot of weightlifting and CrossFit, so I'm really applying myself to that at the moment. There is talk about doing an Atlantic row in 2026, so that's a little way off. And I'd love to do something in Antarctica at some point. So yeah, lots of options, but
Huge year ahead.
also just working hard and consolidating all of my experiences and learnings, and yeah, doing lots of speaking work and work with different corporate organisations. So yeah.
Vicky, thank you. Clarissa, we wish you a happy new year. And to Matt as well in Suffolk, thank you all so much for your insight. Remember, you can see more discussion and debate on our YouTube channel. Just search for Roundtable TRT World. But for now, from me, Enda, Brady, and all of the team here, goodbye, and thank you for watching.